separate video here, right? But I think this is a good talking point because the things that women say and they want to act like they're cooking. But then as men, we hear this like, that's not sounding quite right here. And we need to correct this scheduling program that we got going on here. So shout out to Medium Man. Let's go react to this video. I want you guys to hear this, and I want to get your information, your 2 cents of how you feel about the things that she's saying here. So let's go ahead and pull this up. Shout out to Medium Man. He comes dressed dapper on his live streams. He got the suit and tie going on. I like the lapel here. I like the fat knot on his tie. He do his thing. So if anybody knows Medium Man, tell him that dude named Dave says what's up, and ain't no hate and no beef on my side here, right? I support this brother. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing here. So no hate from TD&D to Medium Man here, right? So let's react to him and see what he's talking about with Miss Cheyenne Bryant, the doctor.
Goes by without black men getting lied on by black women. And if you guys didn't see the video, I'm gonna play it right now. It's very short, but it's bad.
Men do not want to marry. It says 90%, and you could talk about facts, but I'm gonna give you stats, Willie. 90% of black men would never marry. 90% of black men would never marry. 90% of black men would never marry. 30% of black women would never be married and have to marry outside their race if they want to get married in general. Family is what creates wealth, not individualistic. And so unless we start to marry together and have 2-parent households who have 2 incomes with families who can commune together, we don't have a community.
90% of black men will never marry. 90%. She said, and she said, it says. What says? What says that, ma'am? What says that 90% of black men will never marry? And this is the type of, I was going to cuss, too early to cuss. This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about. This woman is on a public platform. People just sitting there with their legs crossed, ears listening to this woman just lie, and nobody is educated enough to say that's not true. Y'all really, why would those black people sit up there and let this woman ramble on and say that 90% of black men will never marry? This is a hurt, scorned, bitter ass woman. If y'all ain't noticed that, she is on a rampage on every platform, giving her unsolicited opinion about certain things that ain't got nothing to do with her. And she is not qualified to give these opinions. What is it? What stats? I got the stats. The statement that 90% of black men will never marry is not accurate. Marriage rates for black adults, according to Pew Research, 36% of black men are married, compared with 29% of black women. The marriage rates for black men. Pew Research Center reports that 55% of black men are unpartnered. Marriage rates for black women are 3 times as likely as white women to never marry. This is what I put under her post. Let's go down here. Of course, I put the references so people can go check them out. The marriage rates for black women, we saw that. And then I put another statistic up there where it says black women are the only group among other races with a number of divorces higher than the marriage rate. And this is from Marriage to Ratio in the U.S. Demographic Variation from Bowling Green State University, 2018 and 2021. Both of their studies from each particular year say the same exact thing. These shares only consider those who married and whose spouses live in the same household. That goes back to my point that was covered by blackdemographics.com by way of the CDC that says that 66% of black men live with their spouse or their first child when they have their first child, and only 41% of black women live with their spouse after they have their first child. Then I also put in there, married black women in turn are more likely than married black men to have a spouse who is also black, 87% versus 79% for black men. Key facts about the nation's 47.9 million black Americans. And of course, I put it on my Instagram page to show you guys where you can look up this stuff if you want to see how many black men and women are living without a partner. They are right here. And then you can also go to Bowling Green State University, and you have that statement right there that I put in there as well. You guys have seen these before. All you got to do is do the research for yourselves. And these are the marriage numbers in total. Black Americans are less likely than other Americans to be married. We already know that we're kind of battling for the bottom. If she wanted to say that black families need to partner, that was perfectly fine. We all say that. We all say that black families, in order to do better, to have 2-income households, we can start building generational wealth like that. But why the shaming towards black men?
Let me pause that there. Let me pause that for a second. Shout out to mediumman here, because he is bringing real stats. I actually used to look at these stats on blackdemographics.com, and blackdemographics.com, like he said here, is getting information from the CDC here. Is the fact that when we go to blackdemographics.com, statistics for black people by black people, we're ripping the CDC information and just looking at the demographics by foundational black Americans, the 43 plus million Americans that we as FBAs here on this country that we call the United States of America. So for her, just to throw out obscure numbers. So if you hear a person say 90%, 95%, right? When you hear someone be emphatic like that, she's basically saying that none of these people will get married. And he makes a great point here when we're talking about how we need to establish black wealth. We need to establish the black household as far as, income and building generational wealth here. And how do we do that? It happens from 2-income households and not just one. Now, I get it. Some of y'all brothers will never get married. I get it. Some of y'all don't want to get down to get down. I get that here. But we're talking about a large collective within the community. With what we got going on here, we know we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to statistics for a lot of things here. But for her just to throw out numbers, disrespecting men. Because here's one thing about Cheyenne Bryant that I've been going in on. And I mentioned this on my last live stream when we dedicated to her talking about the situations here. Can somebody who is really not involved in our demographics, can she really give counsel and talk about what we got going on? I gave the example how when I went to therapy over 6-7 years ago, I was dealing with a married white woman here, and she was very good at her job. The problem is when we got into the root of the issues that I was dealing with personally within myself, within my family, and then talking about items within the black community, she could not talk about it because she's a white woman, and she's a white woman here in the Chicagoland suburbs. So she had no insight on this. So much of our sessions, I was constantly informing her. I was constantly giving her game and telling her about the black experience, how black men move, how black women move. But what happens when you have Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, who was in a relationship for 10 years engaged, and saying by year 5, she knew that she was not going to marry that man. She wasted a man's 10 years and never married him. And then the rumor mill, because there's so many people coming out saying that she's not even getting down with men, she's getting down with women, and she has a girlfriend doing a same-sex relationship. Here's the thing. If that's who you love, that's who you love. More power to you, right? Because if you find someone that makes you happy, then go be happy. But can somebody who is in same-sex relationships, if you are a woman-on-woman relationship, or if you're a man and dealing with man-on-man relationships here, can you really speak on the dynamic between black men and black women relationships? And the thing is, how can you, when you've never been married, you don't have any kids, and you have not been through the firestorm to understand what it's like to be married, the ups and downs, the downs and ups that goes along with relationships here? Can you really be a true professional and give sound advice, give sound counsel when you are not living that lifestyle? You may be part of the culture, but are you living a lifestyle that can give sound advice for people who are involved in that? Because same-sex relationships is the minority. And since it's the minority, how is someone from the minority speaking from the majority? And then on top of that, too, to being a professional, how can you give sound counsel when you don't even have the experience? Engagement don't mean a goddamn thing. When you're actually married and then you're living with somebody and you actually have kids, that is a whole different lifestyle where that you have your last name, he has his last name, and at any given time, anybody can jump out the door. That's what we're talking about here with Cheyenne Bryant here. Every once in a while, she may give some good advice regarding black people and black culture here, right? Because that's one thing that we need to increase is black wealth. but can you give advice on relationships if you're not participating in these relationships or have any experience whatsoever? Let's continue with Media Man here.
What was the purpose of that? To put out that lying-ass statement. Let's go over this once again, just in case we have some people who are ninja watching and they secretly hate black men. So for all you black women, and yes, I said black women because I seen y'all in Dr. Bryant's chat bringing this up. Just understand that only 46% of black men have ever fathered children between the ages of 15 to 49. 61% of black women have ever mothered children between 15 to 49. So that debunks your whole statement that black men are running around, creating all these kids. No kids. 54% for black men, 39% for black women. So that is a 15% difference, which attributes to black women having over 1 million kids between the years of 2015 to 2019. If you guys want to do the research for yourself, please go to the National Center for Health Statistics. It is.
Let me pause that there. You see that? National Health Statistics report here. Shout out to Media Man, because people always say, go online, go on Google. I'm doing this video here because he did all the homework. He did all the legwork. So shout out to him here. So when people say, well, you're just saying stuff here, what she is doing here, he got receipts and got the information here. So we're bringing this to the masses.
Number 179, January 10th, 2023. And it is titled Fertility of Men and Women aged 15 to 49 in the United States. It is a national survey of family growth, and the years are between 2015 to 2019. This is how you share information on social media, not saying it says.
It says.
And you supposed to be a doctor, and you gonna say that on this public platform? That's why folks think black people are ignorant, because these are the types of women that our women will look up to and try and throw this false ass information in the black men's face. This is stupid. We run in circles, talking about the same thing. And then I got to come here and be the asshole and disperse the truth. At the end of the day, man, when this platform is gone and I'm gone, I'm going to either be the man who was hated by the black community. I'm going to be the guy that brought the truth to the black community. And that can go either way. I see that now. Okay. So at some point, we gotta start getting more intelligent folks on these platforms and not just saying things just for clickbait. This is stupid. People got better things to do than be sitting here running after some doctor that's saying this foolery. It's insane to me. Stop giving this woman a platform if she gonna say this stuff about black men and not do her research first. But we know how that goes. Everybody chasing a buck. Jesus Christ. So that was just the stupidest thing ever. And it's not only the fact that Dr. Bryant is saying that, it's the women that are agreeing with her with no statistics. Black men have to be the only group that you could say anything about us and people will believe it's the gospel. Seriously.
Well, that's a fact here. I want to pause there for a second here. We get demonized as black men so much. I actually had a conversation with a woman about a week and a half ago, and her peer review, where she lived in an area that, was not heavily around black people. And then she came to Chicago. So, of course, she saw two extremes. So she went to an area where wasn't that many black people, but then she was on the west side of Chicago, living in the west side of Chicago. And so we're having this conversation and just demonizing men. And I'm trying to explain to her, it's like, what you're seeing is true. You probably been around some of the degenerates of our society, but what you're around is not all black men. And then she was trying to go in so hard saying, these are black men. I'm like, no, am I that kind of black man? You see, and then the thing is, she used to live on the west side of Chicago. That was not really a good side of the west side of Chicago. So you're dealing with the hood. And then you lived in the area where there weren't that many black people. But whenever people talk about black men, it's always the worst of the worst, and we're always defending ourselves. And when we defend ourselves, people look at us like we're crazy. It's like, dude, Dave, you really can't believe this is true. Hell yeah, I think it's true, because you want to believe media takeout. You want to believe the shade room. You want to believe all these janky ass websites, right? But here's the thing with these websites: who run them? Who operates them? You say, Dave, black people run them. Yes and no. They're not foundational black Americans. They're not the black Americans we talk about who was born in this country. Like, I was born here. My parents were born here. My grandparents were born here. My great-grandparents grown here. My great-great. We can go back to the 1700s. When we talk about my family, my lineage. When we talk about the black folks who run the shade room, who run media takeout, these are Haitian Americans. These are Jamaican Americans here. Yes, they're black, but they don't have a reason to be on code with us. If you notice on those websites, they show the worst of us. But then when you see other black cultures, you will see Nigerian marriages and looking how good and festive the marriage is, or you will see all these big things that's going on in these other cultures. But when it comes to foundational black Americans, what do they show? They show our degeneracy here. The thing is, do we have degeneracy in our culture? Hell yes. Every culture does. Chinese has their bad apples. White people got their bad apples. Puerto Ricans got their bad apples. Mexicans got their bad apples. Venezuelans got their bad apples. Everybody's got their bad apples. But the website that we think that is being run by foundational black Americans or black Americans, they're not run by us. They have a purpose to show the worst of us. So then when they show their side, they're showing the best to delineate. They're showing what, hey, look at these African Americans here. They're the worst of the scum of the scum. Where that I've even had conversations with some of my best friends, and then they would come out and say, Dave, can't you see this here? And then it got to a point, it's like, who runs these sites here? Why are we always showing the worst of ourselves here? We're not showing it. It's propaganda to make us look worse. I'm not saying we're not doing these things here. The thing is, if all you show is the worst of us, then that's all people think that they think of us here. And that is what Dr. quote unquote Cheyenne Bryant does here when you hear her talking points. She likes to look at the Nick Cannons of the world, the Cam Newtons of the world, the celebrity world, who is less than 1% of black men who are doing things in the community here, but then want women to look at these men as examples on what to stay away from the regular everyday black man here. And so let me go back to me, man, to finish this video off here, but we need to show statistics. We need to show stats. We need to showcase all black men are not degenerates. The CDC, along with blackdemographics.com, showcase 54% of black men are single and childless. So you can't say that's over half of black men. So if over half of black men don't have kids, then we know there's only a small amount of men who is making all the kids. So over half the community don't have any kids, but somehow we're all baby daddies. Somehow we're degenerates. Somehow we're no good niggas. Okay? But that's not the case, because when she say 90%, what do women think? All these men are bad. All these black men are doing wrong. All these black men are degenerates here. When in actuality, over half don't even have any kids. So the situation is, we need to combat this here because of women like her who are bitter, who are scorned, who are maybe living an alternative lifestyle, who date women who are feminists and then want to look down at us to big up them here. And we got to combat that here, because we got to stop this deluge of bringing down the black man, our foundational black brothers here. Let's continue.
You could go out there and say, man, the reason why black men ain't in their kids' lives is because they on the corner shooting dice. Yeah, I seen this other black man. He was out. I remember that black woman got on there and said, yeah, I work in a nursing home, and all the black men, they told me, they said that they used to be players and now they ain't got nobody to take care of them.
Hospitals and these statistics, actually, the nurses will tell you that the people who die alone are men.
I don't care what anybody has to say about what I'm about to say, because in my almost 20 years as a nurse, the most bitter, angry, nasty, rude patients are middle-aged to old black men that have never been married.
Middle-aged black men.
I don't know if it's because they feel like they never had a woman that loved them or took care of them. And a lot of them, here's what happened. They was a player.
I'm an old Mac from way back. One of the original players from the Himalaya.
There was a whole, they had lots of the girl that got away. And now when they old and used up and sick, don't nobody want them. Now you mad at the world. But when you had some good ones, you ain't do them right. But those are the most difficult patients.
A notable exception was men who were black, indigenous, or people of color who participated in more group activities than white men. What? Particularly games and religious services. They also organize their own social activities more frequently. BIPOC men, however, describe relying on family members more frequently than white men, with several providing rich descriptions of the gifts, i.e. the cell phone, and visits their families provided. I'm laughing, but it's just so funny. And she got on TikTok and she said that. And every black woman was like, yeah, my grandpa was in, some more black men, in the nursing homes. And they dying alone, girl. Yeah, I worked there too. They told me they used to be players and pimps. And they said they had good women. But now they're here and nobody visits them.
Shout out to Media Man. That's the end of the video there. I wanted to play that. Shout out to Pooh Man who sent me that video when Media Man dropped that. I think he dropped like a week and a half ago, give or take here, right? And I'm glad that he put them stats there and he did the screen work and everything. So if you guys want to check that out, I tell everybody too, if you get the opportunity, go to blackdemographics.com and then you can